Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio /The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
Putting up the shields. And this is the Draft Cast. We are going through Chad Ford Mock Draft 2.0 for the 2017 NBA Draft, and we're going to be breaking it down into 4 segments, 4 topics. We'll be doing this for all of Chad Ford's mock drafts. We've been doing this last year. You guys did it previously on the Primetime Podcast, too. We're moving it over to the Fast Break.
The onside kick, but it's okay.
Well, but when
Brandon was on it, too, we kind of did the whole thing.
There was a Primetime Podcast 2015 mock draft reaction to 7.0.
There was a PTP.
So, yeah, so, but anyways.
That was a while ago.
I know. I was looking up stats. But anyways, we're going to be jumping in, and we're going to be looking at Markelle Fultz versus Lonzo Ball, talking about who is the better prospect. We did it last year with Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram, kind of discussing who should go number 1. There's kind of a consensus here, but still, there might be some players that do stick out. Then we're going to go to the Boston Celtics, possibly having the number 1 draft pick in the NBA draft in 2017 because of that terrible Brooklyn trade. And then we also have the 76ers possibly having 2 top 10 picks. And then rounding this out with Harry Giles and discussing if his injuries will be too much to overcome in the NBA. But boys, let's get into it. Markelle Fultz versus Lonzo Ball. Markelle Fultz is the consensus number 1 draft pick in most mock drafts. But looking at it, should he be?
I mean, it's hard to argue because he's putting up such fantastic numbers. The only real downside of this that you can really point at and be like, well, you know, why isn't this team winning more? And that's, I mean, he's carrying a bad team, but he's not good enough to carry them out of their situation. And I don't know if you really want to count that against, because we've seen a ton of college players be on, you know, underperforming teams in college. And yeah, maybe they won't make the tourney, but look, they're still just there to showcase one talent. Let's be honest. Like, this team is not stacked. They're not dropping 5 to the NBA like certain other teams are going to be doing. So I think what he's doing is displaying the fact that he is coming into the NBA as the ideal point guard for today's generation. He can score, he can pass, and he has a great tempo to set on that offense.
And one thing, too, it's very similar to last year, too, where Ben Simmons was the number 1 overall consensus pick, but he was on a bad team. LSU didn't make the tourney, where Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, they were on tourney teams. They were on teams in the top 10. And I know some people might be questioning, well, why is this a question? Because most people do have Fultz as the number 1 overall pick, but then we had a conversation early where Ricky was like, I'd take Lonzo Ball number 1, no doubt.
The reason why is, and the big question that I think, and guys, I'm going to save you guys because I know people in the comment section have already said it.
Their fingers are already bleeding.
This team is 15-1. This team is like last year they were 15-17, and I know what you're thinking. Well, Ricky, that's why people are going, yeah, you know what, this team isn't as good. Well, last year they weren't a good team. This year, 15-1, their only loss on a last-second shot in Eugene, Oregon. This is a team where it's not like Ben Simmons. They have guys that are scoring at double digits all over the place. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players all in double digits.
It's pretty outrageous
this year. And guess what? Lonzo Ball isn't even the leading scorer on this Bruins team. It's TJ Leaf.
Well, that's one thing, too. I mean, you got to also question with Brandon Ingram last year. He was playing with Grayson Allen. He was playing with guys who are going to be in the NBA. Even Kennard as well, who's a sophomore now. He played with him last year. Where you look at TJ Leaf, he's a guy that's projected near lottery pick around that 13 to 15 range. Bryce Alford, senior leader. I mean, he's kind of what everyone hopes Austin Rivers would be, Coach's son, but he's actually doing well. And then you also got Isaac Hamilton and Aaron Holiday too. So you have guys that are producing where Markelle Fultz is pretty much on an island in Washington.
Here's the thing though that is my biggest difference from, since we're comparing this to the Simmons Ingram conversation of last year. You mentioned how Ingram was playing with so much talent at Duke.
A better coach too.
How many assists did he have? 2 per game.
But he also wasn't the main ball handler.
This year, you have, of course, he's a point guard, and Lonzo Ball has the ball in his hands more, but 8 assists. He's getting the ball.
But you're comparing a point guard to a small forward.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but Ricky's trying to make a fairly valid point, which is the fact that look, if as a point guard, your job is to get the ball around to your teammates.
But
he
if
has
you have
more
those
assists.
players, you can still pass the ball to a player.
Yeah, but you're not going to be a set for success. It's like talking about like James Harden versus Russell Westbrook. One of them, like they're both fantastic point guards.
It's more comparing like KD to Russ. Because
I'm tossing out the small forward discussion entirely. Like that's they're different positions.
you're talking
I disagree.
Fultz versus
Ball. Correct.
I don't know if Ball fits.
Russ. I'm just in this one specific. Let me spell it out because it does need a little bit of preferencing. You're right. Straight up, that's an awful comparison. What I'm talking about is more so the assists and think about how they get the assists. And with Russell Westbrook, he doesn't have a fantastic outlet. He doesn't have that scorer anymore with KD gone. So he plays the pick and roll a lot, and he has to rely on guys who are average to bad shooters. When you look at Ball, he has 6 guys scoring double digits on the team, five other than him, and you have reliable shooters, and you have excellent scoring percentage across the board on those. So it just turns into, look, Ball may or may not be better at getting assists for his team, but he may put his people in better positions to score following that pass. And I think he gives them a better opportunity once they have the ball in their hands, rather than Fultz, who may not.
Well, and it's the big thing. This isn't a knock at Fultz. This is just what I like from Ball's draft profile. You look at the positive that ESPN has on it, I see unselfish. And I go, if I see elite passer followed by unselfish, sign me up for that kid.
But one thing, too, with Fultz is he's going to need to be selfish because he's on a worse team. When you have guys that can put up points like Lonzo Ball's playing with, he doesn't have to be unselfish. And I know still there's still, he showed that in high school as well, but really with Lonzo Ball, I mean, he's playing on a better team. He doesn't have to take the full load where, when Russ puts up 46, he's going to lose that game most likely because he's the only guy scoring points for that team, where if James Harden puts up 25 and still has a triple-double, that team's probably winning because they have deadly shooting from the outside. So, Ricky, you're on the side of Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a leaps and bounds like, man, Ball is way better than Fultz. It's just I like the total package of he can shoot, he can ball handle, he can pass, he can defend in the backcourt. More around an all-over player to me.
Dave, where are you sitting on this fence?
If you had to make me choose between the two, I would go with Fultz, but I want to take the field. I think somebody else is going to come up and surprise us from
Malik Monk.
I love Malik Monk. I think Josh Jackson's quite good. I think Giles has room to prove himself still this year. There's plenty of time.
And we'll talk about him later.
And I just think that someone else can still come up and surprise. I don't think this is a 1-2 race like we saw last year. I think that there's definitely a lot of time left in the season and a lot of room for them to prove themselves.
I don't think it's a 1-2 race either. And the thing is because it's a 1 race. And last year it was a 1 race too, and I put Brandon Ingram number 1 for most of my mock drafts.
But that was
just I'm explaining myself.
It's
a conversation.
I know.
With last year, Brandon Ingram, I put him number 1 just because people were like, why is Brandon Ingram your number 1? And they would look at the mock draft. It's called markability. It's called, trying to bring in views.
Clickbait.
It's called clickbait. But what the thing is here is Fultz is the number 1 prospect in my mind, and he is consensus, and I don't understand any other reason Lonzo Ball would go over Fultz, because Fultz, when I look at him, I see patience, I see the ability to drive, I see the whole package, I see a guy who can be a James Harden, a Russell Westbrook, a guy who fits the now what is traditional or modern
it's
point
modern.
guard.
Modern versus traditional.
Modern point guard, because he has this great patience when he's driving, and he doesn't show this crazy speed, and it's possibly because he still hasn't developed that speed, but what he's playing with right now, it just seems the game is slower for him. And even with a poor team, with poor spacing, with a team that really can't shoot outside of really one teammate, he doesn't have the ability. I mean, he has the ability to really slow down the game and get to the hole and shoot and pass. And it just seems like when he can just digest the game so well for a 19-year-old. And that's the thing, if I go out there as a 19-year-old, which I am, and try to play at that level, I'm going to be lost out there. Guys are going to be stealing the ball from me, but it just seems like the ball flows with him. Right. Where with Lonzo Ball, the kid puts up fantastic highlights, and the kid can shoot from deep. And, he fits this team in UCLA, but I don't know if he can be on a team like the 76ers or, say, a team that's struggling like the Nets. I know the Nets won't pick him, but if he's on a worse team, can he still show this without the great team behind him?
And that's why I say I disagree with it, because I don't think this is at all like last year. Last year was Ben Simmons was the number 1 pick, and who comes behind him. This year, it all comes down to who's going to get that number 1 pick. because it's really going to matter. If it's a team like the 76ers, sure, go with Markelle because you need to me, that guy that, like you said, if he can be like a James Harden, be like a Westbrook, you need that guy. But if it's a team like the Celtics, they could really go Ball number one because they already have a point guard. They don't need a guy
with Isaiah,
like Fultz.
Isaiah, his contract, I believe, is coming up in 2017, 2018. So then you have him coming up in the back.
It's one of those things where it depends on what team is going to be there because I think we're going to come down to the line, and there are some teams that are going to be on draft day thinking Markelle, or up until the lottery thinking Markelle. There are others that are going to be on the Ball side, and we are not going to get a definitive this guy's going number one until that envelope opens up.
I think that so far right now it's Fultz, and it's not really that big of a discussion to me because just again looking at him, you're going to look at him and see 43% shooting from three, while it is decent.
That's quite good.
But in college, I mean, it's going to differ when you move that line back. If a guy's shooting 45% in college, it's most likely going to translate to a near 40% in the NBA, or at least around 38. Where 43, it could possibly be different because that ball does move around Washington so well because of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many of these are actually truly open, wide open 3-pointers
versus contested shots.
Exactly. So, and one thing too, his free throw percentage isn't that great with Fultz, and he does turn the ball over. But the thing is that he is doing this all by himself, and the abilities that he has on the floor to pass, to shoot, to really slow down the game, that's going to translate to the NBA, and that's going to be able to fit on any NBA team. You put him on a team with Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, and Avery Bradley, if they keep him around, and he's learning behind Isaiah Thomas for a year. If the Celtics do get the number one overall pick, Fultz is going to be a stud.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you at all on Fultz being said. The only thing that you brought up the free throw percentage, and that does kind of bug me because I think free throw percentage is one of those things where it's mechanical. Like, if you put in the time, you will be a good free throw shooter. It's the same motion. It's repetition over and over.
Unless you're Shaq.
Shaq's an awful case for free throws, and that's a whole different story. But as a guard, as someone who has the ball in your hands 99% of the time, like, your free throw percentage has to be fantastic, and that's why I don't like guards shooting below 70% from the free throw line. That's ridiculous. Malik Monk's out there shooting 86. Like, that is where you should be as an elite ball player. And that's where I'm bugged out a little bit because it just comes down to practice and mechanics.
And that's the thing where if you look at it at that next level, if you look at how many they're averaging per game, Markelle is averaging 6 attempts per game, and he's making 4. He's averaging 2 misses when you simplify it down. Ball, you're going to sit there and go, well, Ricky, Dave, he's under a 70. Yeah, but he only averages 3 attempts per game. He's only missing 1 shot out of that 3 average.
But the one thing I want to bring up, though, and you say that, though, but if you adjust that to where Fultz is shooting, it's the same. He's lower.
A percentage.
He's lower. Yeah, he's lower than Fultz shooting in free throw and 3-pointers, and also he does have 2.3 turnovers compared to Fultz, who's up at 3.2, I believe. But you got to look at that UCLA team where there are more threats.
Team. You said right there. You could just stop at UCLA team.
Exactly.
Because there's a team.
So Fultz turning it over 3 times a game isn't that worrisome to me because he does need to force things.
Yep.
And with Lonzo Ball, the fact that he has 2 turnovers a game is I mean, it's still good numbers. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bash two turnovers a game, but just something about that.
Different
with how
expectations
good
for
this
different
team
teams. Yeah.
If you're 15-1 and you have the ball in your hands, you shouldn't be turning the ball over two times a game, near 2.5 times a game. So that's just the reason why Fultz sticks out to me. Thank you. Oh, shit. It's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one. And also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.